Google and Yahoo announced new authentication requirements for those of us sending more than 5,000 emails per send. In this short video, I'm going to unpack this update for you and what you need to do so you are in full compliance. My first recommendation is that anybody, even if you're sending 100, 500 email chunks and automations or other, to also implement these small adjustments for you. Most of the requirements are being taken care of already by VBOUT and hopefully by your email of choice. But if they're not, you need to ask questions and make sure your provider does help you implement them. All right, so let's dive right into this. The first thing you need to know is that this update is supposed to be implemented February 1st, 2024. Even though I heard some rumors that Gmail has pushed it to April, their website hasn't stated so. Now, the first requirements is enforced DNS authentication. We already enforce SPF and DKIM if you want to send out emails, but now DMARC policy, which is a policy, not an authentication necessarily, or it's a form of it, is now required. In VBOUT, the moment you add your sending domain, we give you an SPF record, a DKIM, and a DMARC policy to set up. Before it was optional, but now it will be required. These records take about 5 minutes to set up, so very simple. And the DMARC policy could be set up to none, meaning anybody on the other side should be accepting your emails if the authentication fails. I'll leave below a link to the full documentation on this if you're interested to learn about what DMARC policy is. Second update is that you need to add one-click unsubscribe option to the bottom of your emails. In VBOUT, we already enforced this. We give you those one-click unsubscribe, but we had the option to add a preferences instead. This is where you click to go to a page and you can personalize what people can opt in and opt out from. Maybe you have different categories of content and such. That's not a one-click opt-out anymore. With that being said, you need to add next to your preferences the one-click unsubscribe. I'll leave below a link where you can find all the different formats of that shortcode, so you are also in full compliance. The third requirement, and that's probably more of your responsibility as a sender, is that you need to keep your spam rate, meaning people adding you to spam, below 0.1%, and not to exceed 0.3%, which, I mean, I don't know what happens at this point. They haven't really clarified if they're going to be completely blacklisted, no emails will go through after or what, but you have to be very careful. And that means if you're purchasing lists, you might, I would assume, in the 90% chances, you might have a problem with this, because new cold purchase lists usually have 1, 2, 3%, which is a lot higher than their maximum here. So be careful, be responsible with your email, make sure the quality of your list is good, maybe apply double opt-ins, perhaps use our own, what we have in VBOUT called email validation tool, or if you have something third party like Zero Bounce or Never Bounce, to ensure that the emails you're sending to are as clean as they can be. Then you have the fourth requirement is to set up a reverse DNS record, PTR record. It's almost like a pointer. So if you think about your website pointing to a domain or an IP, the reverse PTR record is the IP pointing to the domain. So it's the opposite of that. They're doing these for the sending IPs, which are hosted in VBOUT. We have about 50 plus IPs as of now that we use. And each one of those records are already pointing somewhere, and they won't be pointing to your domain. That suffice at this stage. You don't have to have them pointing to your own domain. We have the reverse setup valid and working. So no need to worry about this for now. It's already taken care of by default. Fifth requirement is to use a TLS connection for transmitting emails. This is already by default the way that we send out emails on VBOUT. You do not need to worry about that as well. You need to have your messages formatted according to RFC 5322 standards. Now, I won't dive too much into this. This is what they call request for comment. It's almost like, what is the standard that the email format, what are the standards that the email format should follow? And there's a full documentation on this, which I'll also leave right here. I believe we have a full help section on that. So if you'd like to learn more about what this format entails, you can read the article. But by default, our email should be RFC compliant. And then, last but not least, you need to add an ARC headers for outgoing emails. If you are using forwarding or you're doing a lot of forwarding options, this usually happens if you're doing like a mail serve, if you have groups that forward to other members in the organization. That's not the case in VBOUT, nor do we receive emails being forwarded through relays. So you do not need to worry about this part. This probably applies more for mail serves and external forwarders. So these are the main changes that were imposed by Google and Yahoo. Most of the stuff are really taken care of already in VBOUT. I just want you to focus on adding the DMARC policy on your end because that wasn't enforced by us before, and making sure you have one click unsubscribe, which I'll leave the link below so you know exactly where to find it. This is it. Stay compliant and be a good email marketer because that's going to ultimately get you the best results in your campaigns. Thank you so much.